반갑습니다. Well, if you don't know, now you know. I am back in Korea, and I did a video, my last video, where I touched on some of the circumstances that I had gone through in the past year and a half of my life. And prior to coming back to Korea, I was actually in America, and before that, I was in Japan for about a year. So when things were wrapping up back home in America, I was at a place where I needed to decide, what am I going to do now? Where do I want to go? Is it going to be Korea or is it going to be Japan? So I'm back in Korea, and when I was making the decision, there were certain factors that came into play, and really it came down to about five things that were rattling around in my head as reasons why I chose Korea. The first one is the visa. For any of you that don't know, I have what's called an F4 visa, and Cliff's Notes version is that is for overseas Koreans. In most cases, it applies to people who have parents or grandparents that are from Korea, were once citizens here, but have gone and forfeited their Korean citizenship and gained residency in another country. Their offspring, their grandchildren are eligible for this visa, and this visa allows them to go back to Korea as they please and kind of live similar to what a citizen would, the rights that a citizen would have. I can get my own health insurance, I can get my own apartment, I could buy a place if I wanted to, I could start a business, I can work in other industries. These things are important because there are certain stresses that come along with being an expat in any country, and being tied to a sponsor, like a school or maybe a company. In most cases it's a school, but being tied to them and saying, oh, I think I might want to move on, or there's other things I'd like to explore, you can't just do that. You're at their expense. So having that freedom is a huge, huge plus for me, and for that main reason I chose to come back to Korea. Second thing, Japan. Japan is pretty much exactly as you would imagine it to be. If you've never been there, if you've never lived there or visited there, you have this impression of Japan, and it's pretty much like that. It's very precise, it's very clean, it's very orderly, polite people get out of your way, everything is accounted for and exact. The thing about that is, and everybody's different. Some people really like that. Other people like the other side of the spectrum, the wild, wild west type of atmosphere. I think I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. There were times where I was just like, man, I miss some of that character, you know, a little bit of the roughness around the edges. And Korea is in a little bit of a different stage in their history, and so they're transitioning right now. And with that comes a roughness around the edges. You'll look at some of the construction, and maybe some of the finer details of the fit and finish are a little bit different than what you expect, maybe a little even different than Japan and whatnot. Solid, everything like that, but Bali Bali. The other thing, you can be walking down the street, you know, there's some trash, the cobblestone things are kind of buckling, you got an old man peeing on the side of the road, once in a while, not a lot. It depends on the neighborhood. Some of you might be like, thank God, I don't want to see any of that. I'll gladly go to Japan. And maybe it happens in Japan, I don't know. But that's like character to me, and it kind of makes it a little bit interesting for me. And I did miss that. I kind of felt sometimes that I kind of wanted to ruffle the feathers a little bit in Japan, but I don't want to do that because I don't think they really want anything to change. You know, they have their way of doing stuff. And so when I was thinking of it, I said, you know, when I see images of Korea, I kind of miss that. And that was just another good reason for me to come back. Third thing, I was talking to a fellow foreign teacher friend of mine and about his next assignment, and I happened to mention, hey, what about Japan? And his response was, Japan's kind of old. Now, I didn't really know what he meant at that time, but looking back at what I know now, I kind of have my own interpretation of that. Japan, it's an economic superpower, no one would argue that. But they did peak sometime around the 90s, And since that time, they've been in one form of stagnation or another this entire time. They're still trying to figure out how to break that trend. Also, Japanese culture. It's been well documented in the media. There's so many countless books written about it. It's almost impossible that you can't find out something about anything in Japanese culture. By contrast, Korea. It wasn't too long ago that Korea was a bona fide third world country, an Asian tiger, as the term was coined many years ago. And they have come to be also a player on the economic global scale very quickly. And so because of that, you've got this transition going on right now. So whereas Japan, their time was before, Korea's time is now. And so those growing pains and pangs and things that go along with that transition from the old school to the new school, that brings a lot of interesting stuff visually and experience-wise. And that was something that I knew that I wanted to be a part of and to be able to see. You know, you've got your old school buildings and blocks over here, and over here you've got your super new buildings and your super big skyscrapers and apartment buildings. And that's going away quickly too. Someday it's going to be transitioned and there's not going to be much left of the old school. But right now it's Korea's time, and that's why I wanted to be a part of it. Fourth thing, I'm Korean. And it doesn't matter what country you go to, probably. But at least for Korea, being the same race, sharing that element is very valuable here. You know, Korea is, they hold dear things that are Korean, history, ethnicity, that kind of stuff. And it's always been my experience that once someone that I've been speaking with finds out that I'm Korean, everything, the vibe changes, the air changes around us. And I feel more welcomed in. Edges soften up, and it becomes a different experience for me. And I was never mistreated in Japan, so don't get me wrong. I was always welcome. I was never looked down upon for being Korean. I was never looked down upon for being American, which maybe there's some people that don't like that element because it was Hiroshima. I never experienced any of that. But I just looked at it from a big picture and I said, look, where am I going to go and just have some additional open doors for me, just a little bit of a softer touch, whether it be socially or in hobbies or dating or business or jobs or switching into something and having those obstacles maybe not be there. That would be Korea for me, you know. And as a foreigner, technically I am a foreigner, but when Koreans find out that I'm Korean, many of them think that I'm Korean. They view me as a Korean, as one of their own. And some of them have actually really stressed to me that I should become a citizen, which is not of interest to me. I'm good with the F4, but for that warmness element, it brought me back here. The fifth thing, the last thing, it's an obvious thing, the food. Look, I get the sushi thing, I get yakitori, I like it, beef bowls, and all the things that can be eaten in Japan. It is a very different style. For all the similarities between the two cultures, one of the differences is the way the food is prepared and the flavor quotient. And Korean food just has a certain punch to it. The spiciness, really, I miss that. And when I was here for 4.5 years, I really grew accustomed to all the different types of kimchi, and everything is spicy and tangy, and you know, I really liked the gukbops, Daeju gukbop, and all the things that you put in it, all the banchan, which are all the little side dishes in little trays that you can eat, and they're just countless things, and they're always like a surprise. You never know what they're going to bring out. But I did miss that a lot, actually, and it was kind of hard to fill that void when in Korea, I can just walk down the street at any time and get my fill of Korean food on. And if I don't want to for a little stretch of time, I don't have to. I can just go to the supermarket and get whatever I need that would fit my own home palate. But I did miss the food, but now I'm back here and I don't have to miss it anymore. Props to Japanese food. I know a lot of people love it. I love it too. I just dig certain elements of Korea as they fit into my unique life. Tom Salty dude, and it works for me. And I think I'm in a better place being here in Seoul. But like I said, someday, if I ever have an opportunity to go to Japan, I'd gladly go back. I'd go to any country for that matter. But for right now, for a good stretch of time, I'm committed here, and I'm glad that I'm back. And thanks for watching, and thanks for being there for me and supporting my videos and my process of putting up the Red Dragon Diaries. I hope you have a great day. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Peace.